Okay guys, in this session we are going to discuss about partitions. So if you observe, we are going step by step. The first step we created cubes, and in the second one we discussed about which is the best storage mode, and we came to know that it's MOLAP for querying, best querying. And in that session we came to know that there is a problem that it won't support real time data. So in the later session we discussed about what's the workaround for getting the real-time data in MOLAP storage mode. Now, we're still with MOLAP storage mode, and we are going to pull the data from the database, right? We're going to pull all the data from the database and place it in analysis services, analysis server, if we select MOLAP storage mode. And I hope you still remember that class we discussed about this. And now, what these partitions and how this is going to help. Let me take an example, and you are going to open and answer to the questions that I'm going to ask. So don't delay in answering things, okay? Why? Because it's recording. Let's say I have a big bag. It has 1000 balls, okay? 1000. And I can't draw all the 1000, so let me take a couple of, okay? And 250 balls in blue color, 250 in red, 250 in green, and 250 in yellow. Let's say you have 4 color balls, 250, 250, 250, 250. Now, you have everything in this bag. I came to you and asked you, give me 100 red balls. What you will do? Or the only way you can do is you can get it from here. Search in the bag until you get the first 100 red balls or 100 red balls or whatever the requirement is. 110 or 20, whatever the requirement is. You will get that ball, you will search it, and you will give it to me. Right? How much time it is going to take? If you are not lucky enough to find all the red balls on top. So it is going to take some XYZ amount, right? Some amount of time. It's not so easy to pick from 1000 balls and getting all the let's say your requirement is to get 249 red balls. It will be very hectic, right? You have to go through all the balls and you have to find all the red balls, almost all the red balls, and get it. Or let's assume you have to get all the 250 red balls. It will be very time taking one. Let's say somehow you have found that 100 balls, you have given it, and the next guy came in, again asked for 50 red balls. What you will do? Again you will search it. It is going to take some time. And the third guy entered and asked for 50 yellow balls. On fourth guy, 10 green balls. On fifth guy, 25 blue balls. So like that, if you are getting continuous requests, like, okay, let's say you are getting 100 requests or 1000 requests per day, what you will be doing all the day? So what you are going to end up with? You are going to working on always picking the balls and giving the balls to the guys as per the request. Okay, these are the balls you will be doing, and the same will be continued from Monday to Friday, and Saturday and Sunday, or Monday to Saturday, and Sunday you will have break, and Monday again the routine story. If you continue doing the same on coming Monday, I'll call you as brainless. Why? Because the best way is you can categorize it. Let's put all the blue into one, black into one, yellow into one, and red into one. So what is the advantage of this? What is the difference between these and this? In single word I want. What is the difference between these two? Faster access, work become easy, sorted, faster, separating, sorting. So all these are good answers. But in short, what I can say is I don't need to apply search. Only pick up. Here you have to search and pick up. Here you have to just pick up. So the most time taking one is search generally. Here it will make your work easy. So this is one advantage of partitioning. If you partition the data while querying, it will help you. Let me apply the same to our querying, MDX querying. So what MDX query? MDX query is nothing but a request to the server to give some data, and it will request for some data. Correct? It's just like SQL query. Okay, the query will request some data from here if you are having only one partition. So let's say you have 50 crore records and your request will return 5 records. So what it has to do is it has to go all the 50 crore records and get your 5 records and return it to you. Okay, that's how the MDX query works if you have one partition. Let's say your request is get me 100 records or get me all the records for the year 2000, and you partition the data year wise. This is for 2000, this is for 2001, this is for 2002, and this is for 2003. Then if you request for all the data for the year 2000, then what it will do? It will come here, it will get this bag, return all the results. So you don't need to search. At least the search will be narrowed down. You don't need to search at least in all 50 crore records. It has to search only in this particular bag where it is having 2000 year 2000 data. Agree? Now this is one advantage of having partitions. This is just one. The querying will be faster compared to having one single partition. But remember, while querying, it has to be based on the partition item. If you partition based on year, and if your requirement is in the where condition, get me all the products where product name is equal to XYZ, then these partitions will not be useful, right? Here you have to go and search for it, here you have to go and search for it, here you have to go and search for it, and here you have to go and search for it. But it can do some parallel processing, but it will still better than having one single partition and one single bucket of data. Okay, now this is one advantage. This is like a querying time advantage. There is also advantage at the time of processing the queue. Let's see what is that, and I'll explain it with an example. Let's say this is your source where you have 50 crores of records. Okay, 50 crore. And let's say this is your analysis server where you are gonna push all the data. Okay, now what will happen when you start processing? If you have only one partition here, what it will do is it will create a connection between these two and start pushing the data into the partition. Okay, if you have more partitions, let's say you have 3 to 4 partitions, everything year wise. So what it will do is it will set connections for parallel connections for each partition, and it will push the data. Let's say what will be the query here? Select star from fact internet sales where year is equal to 2001. All the queries will be moved to here. And this one, select star from fact internet sales where year is equal to 2002. This is for 2003 and this is for 2004, let's assume. So all the queries will be triggered parallelly. Not all, maximum you can set some concurrent queries. Let's take 5, 6 or 10, you can set some maximum limit. So if you set some limit, that many number of queries will be triggered parallelly, and that many number of partitions will be loaded parallelly. So that means, let's assume you have a tank, and if you have only one tap at the bottom, how much time it will take to empty the tank? It will take a lot of time. And let's say you have 5 taps at the bottom, and if you open all the 5, so it will be faster. It will be 5 times faster, right? So it's just like sucking the tank of water using one straw and sucking the tank of water using 10 to multiple straws. So always when you have multiple taps open to a tank, it will be emptied faster. So in the same way, when you have more than one partition, so it will set the parallel connections. It will read the data for this, 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 and it will read the data for this. So it will happen parallelly. If I have 50 crore records here, as I told you, and each query, each connection, let's assume read 1 lakh records. Okay, let me go with only one partition. Let's say I have 50 crore records here, and let's say I have only one partition and one connection, 1 lakh records per second. Let's assume it is reading at the rate of 1 lakh records per second. How many seconds it will take to read 50 crore? 1 lakh means 100 seconds for 1 crore, 5000 seconds, right? So it's not 500 seconds, it's 5000 seconds, I guess. Calculate it properly. 1 lakh means, I mean, for 1 crore it should be 100 seconds. For 5 crores it should be 500 seconds. And for 50 crore it should be 5000 seconds. That means it's nearly 1.5 hour. Let's say I have created more partitions and parallel connections are supported. Okay. This guy set here and this guy set here. And this is reading 1 lakh per second and this is reading 1 lakh per second. And how it will be? It will be 3 times faster here, right? So, thinking that you can't set 100 partitions and say that it should be completely in 1 minute or 2 minutes. It will not happen. Parallelly 4 to 5 connections will be set. At the time, 4 to 5 partitions will be processing. First, it will process 4 and then it will take another 4 and it will take another 4, something like that. So, for sure, the performance, the processing time will be reduced. Let's say a cube is taking 10 hours to process. Then if you add partitions, then it will reduce the time by at least 3 hours. So it will be 8 hours, 7 hours in between that. Okay. So that is the advantage of partition. It's two-way advantage. One is the processing time will be reduced and the querying time will be reduced. The querying will be super fast compared to having one single partition. And partition, what is meant by partition? If you take a direct meaning of the word partition, it's nothing but partitioning one room or one block or one area into many subsections. So in the same way, we will have one table by default. That means one partition by default whenever I create a measure group. So what we are going to do is we are going to partition it based on some condition. You have to be very careful while giving the condition. The condition should be most frequently used one in your querying. Okay. Then it will be advantage. As I told you, if you partition based on year or month, and if you query most frequently based on product, then it won't make much sense. Right? Okay, there are some steps to be followed while creating the partitions. I will explain you that. But this is the advantages of partition. The processing time will be reduced and the querying time also will be reduced. And processing is nothing but creating buckets. Splitting one big bucket into one big transaction table into multiple buckets and pushing the data which is relevant to that bucket into each and every bucket. So that is called partitioning. You can create n number of partitions. Until 2005 version, it was only 2000 partitions per cube limit was there, per measure group limit was there. Now they lifted that limit and you can create n number of partitions. But think about it. How many partitions you are going to create? If you create 2000 partitions, then people will laugh at you. Hardly people will create 200, max 300 I have seen. That's it, not more than that. So I'll show you how to create the partitions and what are the steps you need to be taken care of while creating the partitions. Now, as I told you in last session, whenever you create a measure group, by default, one partition will be created. And if you go here into the partitions tab, it will be shown here. And remember, this partition plays a major role in performance tuning. Whenever people ask question about performance tuning, the first thing you have to tell is partitioning of the fact table. Why? Because fact table or the measure group table is the biggest table in most of the cases. Right? Not in most of the cases. In almost 99.99% of the cases, the fact table is the biggest table with more number of records. Why? If a customer table, if I have 1 lakh customers, then there will be at least 1 crore transactions. Right? So always the biggest table will be fact table or measure group table. So partitioning the table, and this partitioning you don't find for dimensions. Why? Because master table should not be so big. But here fact table can be so big, like 1000 crore records or 2000 crore records. I have seen data with 3400 crore records in one transaction table. So the data will be very high, very huge in in the measure group table, and that's why you have to go for partitioning. And by default, one partition will be created for every measure group. That means telling the server where it has to it will pull the data from SQL Server or any relational database, but where it has to place, what is the bucket where it has to fill this data? The bucket is with the name of fact internet sales in SSAS server for this database. Now if you see, by default the partition is table binding. By default it will be set to table binding whenever you add a measure group. What is meant by table binding here? Let's say this is your relational database and this is your partition. Okay, table binding means pull everything, that's it. No where condition, nothing. Pull whatever sheet is here in this transaction table into this partition. So that means this partition is nothing but replica of the fact internet sales table, right? Or the measure group table, whatever you are using to create this particular measure group. So the table binding means there is no where condition, no filtration part. Pull everything and get into the partition. So this is about the table binding, but by default it will be table binding. Why? Because we are not allowed to miss even a single record. And now let me explain you how to create partitions. Before creating partitions, you have to keep couple of things in mind. The first thing is you should not miss even a single record. Remember that. If your requirement is to show to all the records which are having created date greater than 2000, greater than or equal to 2000, from the year 2000 to till date, if the requirement says you have to show all the data, then you should not miss even a single record. Or let's say your requirement says you have to show all the data. All the data that is present in the measure group table, that is fact internet sales table, is required for my analysis. Then while creating partitions, you should not miss even a single record. Okay, that's the first thing. And second thing is you have to filter it in a proper way. You have to create partitions in a proper way based on the most frequently used one in your where conditions of your MDX queries. You have to partition. Let's say you are partitioning the you are querying the data mostly based on the year, then you have to better partition based on either year or quarter or month or something like that. If your where condition of your MDX queries is products in most of the cases, then you have to better if you partition it based on products. Why? Because your query will be like this: select star from the fact internet sales table where product is equal to A or product is equal to B. Then instead of going and searching in all the partitions, it will go and search in that particular partitions where the product A and product B is sitting in. Clear? So these are the very important points that you have to remember while creating the partitions. And the first and foremost thing you have to do is remove this table binding. If it is table binding, the problem is everything will be moved into this partition. Whatever the data that is present in the fact internet or your measure group table, everything will be moved into this table binding. So once every record is moved into this table binding, this partition, then why you need to create another partition? If you create second partition, what will happen? Data will be duplicated. That is also a very important point. No record should be fetched twice. If you have 50 crore records, you have to get only 50 crore records. You should not get 50 crore and one record also by mistake also. Okay. If you get if you get any record twice, then what will happen? The values will be changed. The extra record will alter the sales amount or whatever the amount, tax amount or whatever the amount you are verifying. Let's say I have a table binding here, and let me set a partition on the same. Okay, fact internet sales, and let me select this. And here if you see, measured data may be counted twice if you use this table in another partition. Why? Because the fact internet sales is already used in the table binding. So the problem here is the data will be counted twice. If I create one more partition, it may count twice, so that's why it is not allowing me to go for it. So that's the problem. So as I told you, three things is: one is data should not be repeated, Data should not be missed out. And what is the third one? Should be partitioned based on most frequently querying data or querying the condition, whatever the condition you're gonna give. Now, as I told you, first and foremost thing is you have to change this to query binding. If I select query binding, automatically the query is coming. This is your fact internet sales query and also the where condition. What is the condition that you want to filter for this particular partition? Okay, for loading data into this partition, I don't have any particular product or something to filter. So what I will do is where sales amount greater than 1000. I'm giving some dummy condition, but you should not give like this. I'm gonna give you assignment on the other one, so that's the main one. Okay. So if you see, where sales amount greater than 1000 is the condition I have given for the first partition. If I click on OK, so this has become query. Earlier it was table, now it has become query. And if you click on this, you can see it is query binding. Here it is query binding. So query binding in the sense, I'm giving you a query to pull the data from the relational database and place it into this partition. So what I can do is to give a proper name, I can rename it to Fact Internet Sales with sales greater than 1000. So just to make it more understandable, right? Now I'm gonna create one more partition. I'm gonna show you how to create one more partition. So click on next. And I'm gonna select this fact internet sales table. Now we won't get that error. Why? Because the first one is query binding. Next, specify a query to restrict the rows. Okay, and here where sales amount less than 1000. So I'm giving a query to filter all the products, all the fact internet sales data where sales amount less than $1000. Okay, now this is nothing, just processing option. I will explain you that. If you see here in the processing option, you can see current server instance. That means where the analysis server is present, that is called current server instance. If you select this remote analysis server as data source, so this is called using the remote server from the data, I mean, what I can say, different project, different analysis service project data source you can use to connect. But this is very not very, we never use this. I can say 0.001% probability. And if you see the storage location, here this is default server location, or you can specify where the data needs to be stored. Let's say you install SSAS or SQL Server in your C drive, and if C drive is full, then you can specify your own location, own folder path where you want to store the data, or else it will go to this OLAP, and to this data it will go on store the data into this particular path. And if you go to the next, it's asking for name. What I can give? With sales less than 1000. And if you see, it is asking me to design aggregations for the partitions now, or design aggregations later, or copy the aggregation design from the existing partition. So all these things talks about aggregations. So aggregations is like next step. Once you create the partitions, the next step you have to do is creating the aggregations. So at this point of time, I don't want to create these aggregations. Why? Because I have a separate tab to create the same, and I will explain you as part of the aggregation design how to do that. Now if you see, I have created two partitions. One was already existing one. I changed it to query binding from table binding, and I have given the details. And the second one is a newly created partition. So if I process this cube, what will happen? Yeah, if I process this cube, as I told you, I said three important points. One is no data should be duplicated, and no data should be missing, and should be partitioned based on most frequently used where condition. Right here, if you see, greater than 1000 records will come into this partition, and less than 1000 will come into this partition, and the equal to 1000 will be missing. And hence, let me create one more measure group, one more partition to get the data also, where sales amount is equal to 1000 and let me design the aggregations later and finish. Okay, so this is how you have to make sure that you are partitioning on the right column in the sense the where condition is proper. The where condition, this is for example I have taken this, but it should not be like this. Okay, and the second thing is no record is missing, and the third thing is no record is pulling extra time. No record is pulling more than once. And all these partitions, if you see, whatever the partition you are creating, okay, this is one storage and this is one storage and this is one storage. But if you see, this will not be shown as a separate one in your browser. In browser, it will show as same. But while querying, if you drag and drop measures, let's say you drag and drop packed internet sales, you can see only one sales amount. If you select this sales amount, what it will do is it will go to the partitions and it will check, get the sales amount from here, sales amount from here, and sales amount from here. That's how it will take. And in querying, in creating the query, in giving the query, you can give more than one condition in the where. But it always depends on how correct it is as per your business. So if your business says that partitioning it based on month, why? Because I frequently query the data based on month. Then if you query year, month, product and all in your where condition, that doesn't make sense. Okay, it all depends on how your requirement is. The partitioning, the key thing you have to keep in mind is the where condition that you are giving as part of this partitioning query. And the where condition I have given is the worst ever where condition. This should not be the case in any of the project. Generally, they don't query based on sales amount greater than $1,000 or less than $1,000 or equal to $1,000. This is the worst one, but I have given you just an example. Okay. And with my experience, let me tell you, 99% or at least 95% and above cases, people will go for month-wise or day-wise or quarterly or year-wise. And one more important point you have to remember is, you should not create partitions just like that. The requirement says at least 20 million records should be there, or 2 million records, worst case. Minimum 2 million records should be there per partition. In that case, you have to create the partitions. So this one hint will help you a lot. Let's say I said right, a minimum of 2 million records should be there. Then only it makes sense, or else it doesn't make sense, or it won't make much difference. Let's say you have a big data warehouse and you are getting data on daily basis. Okay, daily you are getting fresh data, and per day, let's say you are getting 1 lakh records. Then based on what you will create partitions? Based on day, or based on week, or based on 15 days, or based on monthly? What is the condition you will take to create the partitions? If I am getting 1 lakh records per day, so how many records it will be per month? It will be 30 lakh records. So it is very close to the 2 million, and 30 lakh records is a good amount. You can have partitions monthly wise. Let's say you are dealing with Facebook data and you are getting 1 crore records per day. How you will partition? In that case, you can partition daily, or if you have a weekly, not weekly, if you have a hourly basis, these are this many records. If you are capturing the data, you can filter based on every hour of the day, right? So it all depends on how much data you are getting on a daily basis. If you want to partition it based on daily, let's say you are getting only 100 records per, or let's say 1,000 records per day, then how frequent, based on what condition you will create partitions? How can it be monthly condition? If I'm getting 1,000 records, it will be hardly 30,000 records per month. Per year it will be 12 3s are 36, 3,60,000. So if you are having 100 years of information, better you create partitions for yearly. Or see, it all depends on how much data you are getting. So If you are getting 1000 records per day, per year, 1000 records per day, then first of all you don't need any cube, I think. Okay, so keep this point in mind. You have to create partitions based on the data and how frequently you are getting data. This is the most frequently asked interview question: how you created the partitions, based on what criteria. You have to say, first you have to say this: we created partitions monthly. Why? Because we were getting monthly data, and monthly data was around 40 lakhs or 50 lakhs. And the requirement, as per the requirement, we created partitions on monthly basis. Or let's say if you say we created partitions weekly and we were getting data per week, and per week we were getting some 80 lakh records or 40 lakh records. So this is how you have to justify. You have to answer and justify your answer. Okay. Now you know what are the steps. What are the steps you have to keep in mind while creating the partitions. There are 4 steps, not 3. 4. One is no data should be duplicated, and no record should be missed out, and partitioning should be done on proper way, proper column condition. And fourth one is the data. You have to think about the data. Don't blindly create partitions for daily basis or monthly basis. When you have 1000 records, you are not meant to create partitions on that. So it depends on volume of data, these 4 points. And then we have seen what are the advantages at the time of processing, and how it is going to improve the performance. We have discussed that also. And querying also, we have seen how it is going to improve the performance. And we also discussed about how to create the partitions. Any questions? And if you see here, there is an option called estimated rows. Estimated rows is just a hint to the analysis server. Okay, this many rows you may get as part of this. That's it, not more than that. When you process it first time, then it will get some information on that. So now let me process the cube. And let's see whether all the partitions will be successful or not. And if you see here, now it is partition wise splitted. Only one thing, this is having 49,182 rows with less than $1,000, and greater than something it is not showing here, and equal to 0 or equal to 1000, I don't know how many, it is not showing the exact count there. And now if you see the partitions here, the storage modes, you can set the storage modes will be common, right? If you select one partition, and you can set the storage modes for that. And in the options also, you can set the notifications and all. You can set the notifications for every storage mode, which table updates, what is the when it has to notify on which table update. Yesterday we discussed about the proactive caching and the notifications, right? So here it will be applied partitions to partition. Okay, the notifications will be partition level, and the storage settings will be at the complete measure group level. Or okay, and you can try this now by creating. I'm going to give you one assignment at the end of the session, and you have to practice the same. Okay, now this is about partitions. We are good with partitions, and we discussed about proactive caching. We are discussing about all the concepts which improve the performance of the cube, the performance tuning part. This is performance tuning. We discussed about what is that? The attribute relationships, hierarchies that improves the performance, right? And even these partitions improve the performance. And the next thing which improves the query performance is aggregations, which we will discuss about it in later class. But in this class, as I said in last session, we are going to discuss about translations. What is meant by translations, and what is the use of translations? What is meant by translation? I want to English meaning. What is the meaning of the word translation? It's nothing but the translations provide you an option, globalization option. But in real, translation means you're translating from one language to another language. Not all the people knows this language, right? Knows English, right? Most of the guys don't know English, don't understand what they are drawing from the database or what they are browsing in the queue. They don't know what is fact internet sales, and most of the guys don't know how to read it, how to read English. So for those guys, this cube should not be a waste paper, right? A tissue one. So this globalization, these translations provide an option, globalization option for your cube. You can create one cube, but you can present it to different country people or different language people. Let's say if you see, this is the one, AdventureWorks DW is the cube name, and I have one measure group, that is fact internet sales, and I have only one measure, and these are the 4 dimensions I have in my cube. Okay. Now let's see how to add translation. Tell me any one language, that then I'm going to create the translation for that language, and then you can practice the remaining stuff. Tell me any one language. Pick any one. Chinese, Telugu, Tamil. Okay, I got Tamil most of the time. So what I will do is I will take Telugu. Okay, my mother tongue. So what you have to do is you have to click on this, the new translation button. And guys, Tamil guys and Hindi or Chinese, whatever the language you selected, you practice it at home. So what earlier days, when the 2005 was released, when I worked on my first project, and when they asked for this globalization concept for a couple of languages like Russian language and Hungarian language, what we have done is we have copied all these names, whatever the names that is there, AdventureWorks, DW, and Fact Internet Sales, sales amount, products, and everything. We copied it in an Excel, and next to that column we asked them to write what is the Russian name for that and what is the Hungarian name for that. That was done when there was no Google conversion. Okay. Now currently what we people are doing is, first we will take an Excel. Let me take an Excel. And we will copy the names. English name. And let's say we want to translate. Let me copy the names first. I'm talking about how we have handled it earlier, before this Google Translate and all these things came into picture. We have to copy each and every name like this. Sorry, I missed it. It is products, right? So products and due date, ship date, and order date. So once everything captured, what we will do is we will send it to users, saying that let's say Russian, right? Russian, one column, and Hungary. So we will send it to users. We will share it with the users, and users will copy the Russian language for the same, for each and every word, and in the same way Hungarian language, what they'll call in Hungary, this order date, they'll call it, let's say they'll call like that. So they will copy the values in Russian and Hungarian language, whatever the language they're looking for, and they will share the same Excel file with you. And what you have to do is you have to copy the same next to the same language what you're going to select. So to create a new translation, first select this, and as discussed, we're going to take Telugu here. Telugu India, it is there. And once you click this, once you select any one language, you can see one extra column is added, just like in Excel, right? So what you have to do is you have to copy the Telugu name of this here, and copy the Telugu name of this, copy the Telugu name of this. That's it. You don't need to do anything. Translations, it's not a big deal here. Just copy the name. So how to get the name for this? Let me go to the Google. Okay. And let me take AdventureWorks first. We have an option called Google Translate, right? Generally this won't help in most of the cases. Let me take English, and I'll take it to Telugu. Let's say Sahasa. Adventure means Sahasa in Telugu, so Sahasa DW works. So I'll copy it and I'll paste it here. And next I'll take Fact Internet Sales and type it here, Nijaniki Internet Sales. This is really funny translation. I'll copy it and paste it here. Now sales amount. Sales mottam. Perfect translation. Copied it. In the same way, let me take products. Utpattalu, this is exact translation. Next I'll take due date. Gaduvu Tedi, this is also correct translation. Ship date. Ravana Tedi, fine. And finally order date. Order Tedi. So what I've done is I have copied everything. Once it is copied, just save it and just deploy it. No need to process, just deploy. Deploy in a sense, click on process button, click on S, and it will ask you for run or not, right? Now you can close it. That means it is deployed. If you deploy, that is enough. You don't need to process when you make changes to the translations. So now if you see, I googled it and I got the values and I copied it. But if I give the same values, clients may not be happy. SSAS or DW works. This is not pure Telugu, right? So what people will do is they will send this Excel file with the new Telugu values here. Let's say like this, they'll copy the Telugu values and they'll send it to user for verification. If they're okay, we'll paste it, or if they need corrections, they'll correct it and send to us. This is what happening nowadays. And translator is not embedded in SSAS. Okay, and translation will not be done by SSAS by itself. Whatever the name you are going to provide, it is going to provide globalization concept, but it never says that it is going to translate. Okay, this is an option to make use of the translations. You can provide the way. See, to do the same, there is an option in .NET and all the programming languages, which is very complex compared to whatever it is. Now, what I've done, I just stored it, I just copied it, and I just stored it, pasted it here. Now, if I go and see the browser, I'll get a new view. Okay, but if you see, I can't see that now. It is showing in English only. To see the same, whatever the language, whatever we said there in translations, we have to select it here. To test that whether the translations is working or not, I selected Telugu. If I select Telugu here, you can see everything is changed into Telugu. So there is no such tool available, I guess, which will translate by default. Why? Because the names, these are proper names. These are not English sentences what we are going to use here. Let's say a product name. I'll give it as DIM product. Will there be any translated word for the DIM product in Telugu or in Tamil or in any other language? So that's the proper name. You are giving some name and that will not be available, right? So here if you see, with minimum effort, you are not doing rocket science here. You are just copying, translating and pasting it here. And with just one, just by deploying, you are able to see the all the words in Telugu, which will be easy for the guys who don't know English, right? If I drag and drop sales mottamu, I'll get sales mottamu. It's funny, right? And order tedi, which means order date. It is saying order tedi dot day number of the year, calendar year, and so on. But still, if you see, the dates are not showing in the proper language, right? It is showing in English only. The attributes are not showing. So here if you see, you can set the translations only for dimension names but not for the attributes. That means there is option somewhere else, that is in the dimensions. In dimensions also you can find the same option and you have all these things. Time dimension and you have all the attributes in the dimension here. So click on the button and again select Telugu. Where is it? ST, right? It's somewhere here. Okay. Now time dimension, already I've given name there. Time key, what I'll call time key as. I can't copy everything, man. I can't do everything now, so I'll do just copy and paste of the same thing. Okay, so that the same thing will be shown there. Now I have set 4. Now let me deploy the cube once. I just set for 4 items, and that too some duplicated, some junk data I kept. This is not exact and original data. Let me deploy it. It is deployed. Let me go here and reconnect it. Oops, I made the changes to the dimension. So whenever you change the dimension, you have to process it. No other option. See, only that dimension is processing. Why? Because there are some changes. Now let me reconnect it, and you can see these value attributes are changed to Telugu, the language you set, and the value you set. So this is really a beautiful option, right? And you can provide it in different languages, and how much time it is going to take to create 10 languages like this. It's hardly going to take 8 hours of time if you have all the values in hand, hardly 8 hours. But you can make use of the cube in 8 different languages for 8 different users. But if you observe, the data will be in English. If you see, the data will be in English. You can't change the data. So what people will do is, they will maintain the data in their favorite language. In Spanish, August they'll call as Augusto. So if they're maintaining the data in their particular language, then that one will help. Let's say I'll provide Spanish language for the translation, and the Spanish guys will use Spanish month name. English guys will use English month name. And year will be same, right? It's a number. It will be same. But if you see the textual information, they are maintaining in different languages as per their requirements, right? So this is how the translations works, and translations plays a major role in providing the globalization concepts to your cube. And it's very, very easy to do that. That's the advantage in applying the translations. And translations can be given in 2 places. One is in dimensions and another one is in cube. In cube, you can give the translations for any language that is available in the list, and you can give it for the cube name, measure group name, and measures name, and also the dimension name. But at dimension, you can give the names for the you can give the translation values for the attributes and hierarchies. So this is about translations, and in next session we are going to discuss about perspectives and aggregations, calculations, KPIs, and actions. And the assignment for today is, I want you guys to create a cube with same data, with same AdventureWorks data, and create partitions based on month. Order, date, month. I'm highlighting order, date, month wise partitions should be created, and you have something around 12, 24, 36 months, I think. So 36 partitions should be created, and translation should be created for the same cube in your favorite languages. Pick any 3 favorite languages, take the translation page and use the Google Translate and create it, and once the cube is ready, take the backup and send the backup to me. I'll review it here. So that's the assignment for today, and have a nice long weekend. Enjoy the weekend. Thank you guys. Bye bye.